Who is?
Yeah, we have me accounts in the cross.
That's me across.
Yeah. You have got a 4 crosses.
Wait.
Naval base at Harrison's Point in St. Lucie will be restored and included as another quarantine and isolation facility in Barbados for the coronavirus. She made the remarks at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center yesterday as CARICOM heads of government and ministers of health agreed to a regional protocol establishing minimum standards for dealing with the COVID-19 virus. This was over
3,000 people already were.
While noting that the area has been debushed, the Prime Minister says the buildings on the property are structurally sound, but the windows and doors are in need of replacement.
We had MTW clear all of the bush because regrettably it has become overgrown. All of the windows and doors, conduit, wires, everything lifted out, but the buildings are in good shape, and that's the important thing that will allow us to move quickly. And it is against that background, therefore, that so long as we can identify the requisite resources, we will, on a building by building by building basis, start to increase our capacity even beyond the 80 to 100 that I spoke to you about on Thursday in the press conference.
Now, yesterday's meeting was attended by PAHO, Caribbean Public Health Agency, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, and representatives of the leadership of the cruise ship industry and their representative bodies. The government is looking to roll out soon a number of programs linking culture with youth. It's an effort to offer upward social mobility.
Oh, they not looking for money at all, man. I'm always gonna study your fucking money. But this thing get out here now, get out the hand now. We can get fucking dates, oh man. This is St. Lucia, that place and they want their ships down there. Then people come up on our place though. You see what going on?
Yeah,
People serious too, you know.
But you know, in St. Bartholomew and St. Bartholomew and some other players boy in the Caribbean. Yes, in St. Bartholomew and some other place boy, another place in Caribbean, big man. The only matter thing before him here, big man, so they don't have 40 people quarantined. You know we have people quarantined here already too, 2 weeks ago. And I want to give a small figure. When it's 14 people, but it's others was quarantined too, but they ain't get figure up on the others.
Okay.
So it's only a matter of time, big man. This boy was fucking at the players, big man. Big man. This boy was frigging at the players, big.
That thing ain't gonna do too, it start eating for people too.
Yeah.
Oh, that fucking thing, they gonna start right too. So you buy my own thing, I kill one man. That's fuck up man. You boss here?
Nah. You can't, the key to do there.
It's Monday, March 2nd, and time for your Barbados City Morning News Update. CARICOM ramps up its response to COVID-19, better known as the coronavirus, as the region records its first cases. An expanded Bureau of Heads of Government is now in place, tasked with organizing resources with its local, regional, and international partners in order to contain and manage the virus. CARICOM Chairman Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley made the announcement following a special meeting with stakeholders at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center yesterday.
A regional protocol that establishes minimum standards as to what we expect from the cruise industry, what we expect from our own member states. The extent to which one member state may differ from another will be collated and supplied to the cruise industry by no later than Tuesday evening by CARFA. CARFA, for those who don't know, is a Caribbean Public Health Agency. And similarly, we've created a subcommittee of the Bureau in order to be able to start the discussions with our regional and international partners. And against that background, we have asked both PAHO and CARFA to help us in the identification of the gaps that exist within our respective member states, so that as we move to marshal resources, we will be in a position to help. We recognize that instead of every country having the same level, it may well be the identification of a few countries within the region, because of what is involved.
Prime Minister Motley also revealed that Barbados was already taking steps to boost its capacity and has identified the old naval base at Harrison's Point, St. Lucie.
Be looking there to use both for quarantine and isolation. Luckily, we have a number of buildings that will allow us to be able to deal with quarantining. And previously, when it was used as the temporary prison, there was also a temporary hospital provided there. So we have a building that we will have to bring back into shape. It's a couple weeks work to do all of it, but luckily the engineering of the walls and the flat roofs. In fact, let me say that whether it is public health outbreak, whether it is hurricane or other natural or man-made disaster, I am now satisfied that each country in the region needs some kind of facility that allows us to be able to retreat in times of emergency in order to be able to sustain the state or to allow the state to contain a situation that is otherwise uncontainable.
The Pan American Health Organization reported that the Dominican Republic had recorded 3 cases of the coronavirus, St. Martin 2 and 1 in St. Bart's, all related to the outbreak in Italy. At yesterday's special meeting, stakeholders focused on the region's travel partners, primarily those in the cruise industry. A March 13 meeting is scheduled for officials in the airline industry. Chief Executive Officer of Carnival Corporation, Arnold Donald, has committed to work with the Caribbean and assured that industry officials have a number of protocols in place.
And so these protocols that we have in place tend to serve us well. And of course, we fine-tune them as we have in this case for the specific disease or illness situation that arises, and in this case is COVID-19. I think for us, it was important to be here to participate, to encourage everyone to align with the guidance and procedures from the World Health Organization and other global medical experts, so we have a common basis for which we can operate and continue to provide opportunities for the economies while keeping our crew, our guests, and the locals that we come in contact with as we bring our guests to places here throughout the Caribbean healthy and safe.
Meantime, Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, Dr. Joyce St. John, is pleased with the region's collaboration on the public health issue.
The whole mission is to minimize death and illness. And I really appreciate the agreements that were reached, especially with the cruise industry. We have focused quite a bit on border control, and there is a very important role that the cruise industry has to play in helping us with border control while we remain open for tourism business. But there is also the need to pull back in and also focus on preparing for importation and transmission. And you know that CARFA raised the risk level, and that was before we had cases in the non-English speaking Caribbean, but there are cases in the Caribbean.
In other news, St. Thomas began its leg of regathering celebrations with a multi-faith service last evening.
All right, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Wakar Kwadash. Double honor to my teachers, the apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Yakin worldwide. Excuse me. That are sincere and serious in doing the will of Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Wakar Kwadash. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 1 and 2 to you all. Yes, under disciple Koshab and Yamyan. And you should have seen now how far this coronavirus is spreading worldwide, and the Caribbean is taking its measures, its steps to prevent the disease or to quarantine those that have contacted the disease. So, Old Harrison's Point, that's a old facility in the north of the island, right? That was closed for a while, so now they're reopening it to quarantine members, to quarantine people who have the virus, because where it was previously, where people were previously being held, there was a complaint from the residents, right? So they identified that point of the island as a new quarantine facility. Now in the news this evening, 5:30, let me see if this thing can play. I take a Chinese restaurant. Let me see what's going on here first, huh? Yes, host trainer.
It's Monday, March 2, and this is your Barbados Today evening news update. Some 149 workers employed by Chaps Restaurant Limited are still in the dark about when they will get monies owed to them by their employer. In an abrupt move today, the company that operated restaurants Chin Chin by the Sea, Primo Bar and Bistro, and Hugo's Barbados shut down operations. This evening, company officials met with workers, but some of the still shaken employees say while they were asked to collect last week's pay and outstanding vacation monies, they're still in the dark about severance. Earlier today, Chief Executive Officer Joanne Pooler, who blamed the closure on increased taxes and a reduction in guest spend, attempted to explain the company's handling of the matter.
I think the challenge is always the fact that if you advise staff, particularly for something in the service industry, if you advise staff and we stand outside of Chin Chin, that Chin Chin's going to close next week.
Concern, she also responded to issues raised by Pooler about unfair duty-free tax concessions, saying government has been addressing the matter.
We have been looking at this for months and we are almost at the point of having an agreed framework. So as Minister Simmons said, it is
Union of Public Workers after management failed to meet the February 29 deadline to relocate workers. Since last year, Minister in the Ministry asked to stay for another month.
Alright, so like here, my humblest apologies. I can't find any newscasts that I missed this evening regarding, I believe, a Chinese restaurant, shut its doors, right? But I will look for it, Lord willing, and do a lesson on that tomorrow, hopefully. But you should get the main point of this virus is really having an impact on the lives of people and the lives of economies worldwide. You see? And you heard the conversation that I was having with the GX earlier. I was having another conversation. You see? Barbados is only 166 square miles. If that was to hit this island, but let me tell you, it's like a serious domino effect. You see? And a lot of people will be taken by surprise, huh? So 2nd Ezra 15 and 49, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee. Thou shalt be weakened as a poor woman with stripes, and as one chastised with wounds, so that the mighty and lovers shall not be able to receive thee. Wow, so this is really a judgment coming upon these nations. Typically, you saw Edom. When you read this chapter here, you're going to Moab, you know what I mean? But the Lord is going to bring plagues upon this world. You see? Whoa. So really, just a time to repent, you know what I mean? Let me continue here, boys. Verse 52. Would I with jealousy have so proceeded against thee, saith the Lord? If thou hast not always slain my chosen, exalting the stroke of thy hands, and saying over their dead, when they was drunken, so there was, whoa, they made a lot of laughing sport at the nation of Israel. You know what I mean? There's a scripture that says they laid our bodies to the ground, they walked over us. In other words, they took full advantage of us. So what's happening now before your eyes is the Lord is fighting for the nation of Israel. And our Redeemer is coming back to put the final nail in the coffin. You see? Set forth the beauty of thy countenance. The reward of thy whoredom shall be in thy bosom. Therefore shalt thou receive recompense. Like as thou hast done unto my chosen, who's the Lord's chosen? The children of Israel. You see? That's the Lord's chosen people. Deuteronomy 7 verse 6. Deuteronomy 14 and 2. Amos 3 and 1. Joel 2:27. And many other scriptures. The whole Bible, man. Like as thou hast done unto my chosen, saith the Lord, even so shall the Most High do unto thee, and shall deliver thee into mischief. Thy children shall die of hunger, and thou shalt fall through the sword. Thy cities shall be broken down, and all thine shall perish with the sword in the field. Cities broken down, how? Meaning all these factories get shut, the production is going to be halted because of this disease, and many more things to come. You see? Many, many more things to come. You see? Anyhow, I pray you get the point. I hope that's what I define. But yeah, boy, there's gonna come a time to where you could desire to go into a city and shall not be able, boy. So this coronavirus can lead to Jacob's trouble, can lead to martial law, can lead to mandatory microchipping. Mandatory microchipping. Right? Jeremiah 30 verse 5. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. You see? So you're seeing a peace right now, but you're seeing fright. You understand? Whenever you turn on TV, listen to the news, you see? The amount of deaths this coronavirus has claimed, and now we're seeing the Caribbean too. Whoa. I see now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turning to paleness. Yeah, because that could be a time where great death and destruction. So men can be born like women. You see? When a woman giving birth, how she's holler out. These men can be worse than women in that day, man. Verse 7, alas, paleness. Yeah, paleness is what? You can turn pale, be. You will know what to do. Pure fright can take over, man. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua.